there are different generations of Star Wars fans, and all of them are reacting differently to the sequel trilogy. I think that's safe to say. And the different generations, it's based off of what Star Wars content were they exposed to when they grew up. Generally, it's been divided into, four categories. You have those, the original trilogy people, they grew up on the original trilogy. Then you have the people who grew up on the Legends, especially the Legends novels, and all that expanded work. Some of those people, again, though they were looking for more Star Wars after the films, they turned, and it was the expanded universe, and there are also the video games that were in it that allowed it to flourish. And I would say though that generation and some people, this is video games and books are how they were introduced to Star Wars, because there was no films coming out. And then came the prequel trilogy. A lot of people did not like the prequel trilogy. A lot of the people who grew up on, I would say, especially the original trilogy. I've not seen the backlash to the prequel trilogy, though, comes from a different place than it is coming from for the sequel trilogy. A lot of people for the prequel trilogy were more complaining about special effects versus CGI, practical versus computer generated, and more about the writing and dialogue. Not as much. I feel like the arguments why people are backlashing against the sequel trilogy are a bit differently. But that brings me to the fourth category. It's the category of fans who are currently growing up on the sequel trilogy. This is their Star Wars. This was somebody's Star Wars. This is now their Star Wars. And the people who grew up on especially Legends and the original trilogy seem to be the ones that are backlashing the most to the Force Awakens, the sequel trilogy, and the new Star Wars content. Some of them will have legitimate complaints. Not everyone does. More of the kids they were kids at the time, but a lot of the people who grew up on the prequels, I think, are generally having a more positive reaction to the sequel trilogy. Now, still, a lot of the fans who are backlashing against the sequel trilogy, some of them are acknowledging that the sequels are still better than the prequels. I think that is true, especially in the execution and filmmaking design as a whole. Some people, I think, are backlashing just because it's now Disney doing it, and to those people, I'm saying, what? That's not a good argument. That's some kind of fallacy. Not to get too much into argumentative studies and all that. I took a course in high school. But other than that, just to say it because Disney's doing it, or you don't like something that's being said by some people, is that why you're backlashing? That's not a good reasoning. Now, to talk about you don't like how things were executed, or you think they should go in this direction, those are more constructive. Constructive backlash is actually pretty good backlash, and in a franchise like Star Wars where you have lots of fans, that constructive backlash is good as long as it's constructive. Those who are saying, like, The Last Jedi is garbage, Disney's ruined Star Wars, but don't really provide any evidence besides the general, I would say, where it's pretty common knowledge that the Canto Bight arc was poorly executed. If that's the main piece of... they also talk about Luke's character. Okay, that actually might be a legitimate complaint. But this video I'm more talking about the generations of Star Wars fans and how they're reacting rather than the films itself. But, so I've talked about 4 generations. I'm not part of any of those generations. I was only in kindergarten when I was only in kindergarten when... I keep on tripping up. I was only in kindergarten when Revenge of the Sith came out. I was too young at the time. I was kindergarten. I had never even heard of Star Wars at that point. My dad had watched it, but he wasn't, I would say, as into it as I am now. He may have gone and seen them. I actually have no idea. I really don't. I know he saw the original ones when they came out in theater. But I would say he's as big of a Star Wars fan as I am. So, I did not ever have the opportunity to play this. I did not play this. I was thinking of Battlefront 2, which also, I was too young when it came out to really be aware. It wasn't really until between my 4th and 5th grade year of school when I really became aware of Star Wars. And by that point, it was the prequel trilogy was done with. There's been maybe some video games that had come out in the meantime. Maybe even this one. I'm double checking the year. Yeah, this came out around, seems like it came out around the time I was getting into Star Wars. But I wasn't into video games yet at that point. I was into reading, but hadn't really got into Star Wars reading yet. Hadn't gotten into Star Wars. I was first exposed to Star Wars through Return of the Jedi. That's when I started, when I discovered Star Wars and really watched it. I had been aware of it before because I had a few friends in my elementary school who watched Star Wars, but I hadn't gotten into it yet. Probably because I did not have my parents were not huge fans. They watched it, enjoyed it, but that was about it. I'm a bigger fan than they are. I'm probably going to be introducing in the future, once I'm out of college and have a family, I probably will introduce my potential future children sooner than I was introduced. But what did I grow up on? Well, I mentioned that I was only in kindergarten when Revenge of the Sith came out. When I got into Star Wars, that was the summer after my 4th grade year before I entered 5th grade. Guess what premiered that fall? The Clone Wars. I am a Star Wars fan who grew up on the Clone Wars. That real Star Wars fan generation that really nobody talks about. Because it's canon and the politics in it are much more overt really than in any other Star Wars movie. Again, TV show, you can get a little more political, I think, without as much backlash. You have more steady avenue source from ads. I'm only speculating here. But yeah, the Clone Wars was my really first introduction into Star Wars. Not the movies is how I got into it, but it's not what I grew up on. I grew up on the Clone Wars, waiting week by week for the next episode. Recorded them so in case I was working on homework, I could watch it later on. And I had to because I had a teacher in 5th grade who gave out more homework than I'm getting in college, to put it simply. Like, way more. And most of my class, in fact I think nearly everyone in my class agreed that she gave us way too much homework. But that's besides the point. So that probably delayed me really getting to Star Wars by half a year because I dropped that class and went to an easier class because I could not handle the workload. It was too much. I was probably not the only one who done it, but I'm the only one I know of. But besides that, but yeah, 5th grade was when I really got into Star Wars. 6th grade, I was firmly into Star Wars. That's when, let's see, yeah, was, doing, talking with my friends about Star Wars and all that. All because of the Clone Wars. I was also starting to get into video games around that age, too. One of my first video games was actually Lego Star Wars. So, it was the first one I really played consistently. Had trouble with it, of course, because early on I was not that good at gaming. I'm still not the best gamer out there, because I only do it in my free time, and I don't have too much because of college and schooling. But I grew up on the Clone Wars. I'm not the only one. Of course, in each of these groups of Star Wars fans I have outlined here, and including myself in, there's always going to be exceptions. There's going to be those who grew up on the Clone Wars who are not liking the sequel trilogy. There are those who grew up on the original trilogy, don't like the sequel trilogy, but some do. Same with some people who grew up on Legends, and now they're watching the sequel trilogy, and some like it, some don't. I think one big problem is the people who are hating on The Last Jedi and the sequel trilogy as a whole and the new Star Wars content. not because they dislike it, but because they're trying to attract attention to themselves. Some people have legitimate complaints, and they should express them constructively, provide criticisms. That's what being a critic is. That's reviews. That's what those are for. But those who are just saying The Last Jedi is garbage and are bloated in that and not providing evidence, I'm like, yeah, I can't take you seriously. You're not supporting your arguments. You're not telling me why it's garbage. You're just saying it is, and your reasons are they had this one bad arc and they ruined Luke's character. Okay, first of all, did you understand what they were trying to get at with the film? Now, I will admit that for The Last Jedi, they have plot holes. Like, Luke's characterization is not the best in the film, in all honesty. Or, I should say, the explanation of his characterization. The novelization does get into bigger detail, and greater detail. The audiobook's 10 hours long, for crying out loud. It goes into more detail and explains stuff. Not everyone will read the book. Okay, good. That means the filmmakers should make sure they don't have to rely on the book to explain things fans might be a bit critical of. But I just want to say, Luke's characterization makes perfect sense. Everyone expect him to go be his Legends counterpart. Well, that's what Rey was expecting, wasn't it? It really was. I mentioned this, I think, in my Last Jedi review, my review of the novelization of The Last Jedi, that E.C. Henry on that YouTube channel had once did a video of explaining how Rey is us in The Force Awakens. It continues into The Last Jedi. Us, like Rey, are expecting Luke to be a certain way, and then he's not. So unlike Rey, us fans haven't necessarily come to the acceptance of that yet. And Luke does redeem himself, I would say, in the eyes of the fans. And he does it in a spectacular way. Nobody has ever heard complain about that. But I just want to say, if you're going around you're the last as a Jedi, you've been told to rebuild. Okay, so what do? You go find out more so you can properly teach. Once you learn about what led to their downfall so you can avoid it, then your nephew is born and you see the perfect opportunity to train somebody, so you do it, and he betrays you because of rising darkness in him and a slight moment of weakness on your part which you regret. Of course you're going to go in self-exile. I'm just saying, if you literally failed at what you do so badly that your own nephew betrays you, I can't blame Luke for going into exile. It's as simple as that. But that's me, myself. But, also people complain about the politics in Star Wars. Okay, Star Wars has always been political. I'm not going to get that in too much because both Eckhart Snyder and Hello Greedo have done videos on it, which I think has done a much better job than I can ever explain. But I do encourage you to go check out their videos. I'll link them in the description because they really do explain how politics have always been in Star Wars. It's the fact. It has been in Star Wars, always. War. Anti-war is essentially what Star Wars is about. And look, and I'll just take one of their points that they got from George Lucas from an interview that he gave to some group a couple years ago, that the Ewoks are supposed to represent the Viet Cong and how a technologically superior force can be overturned by a non-technological force that's also inferior. It's political. Vietnam War parallels. You can't get away with that. And to us fans who grew up on the Clone Wars, we saw politics in Star Wars. We saw the Senate. We saw the Separatist Senate. We saw clone deserters, clone traitors. We even saw clones arrest their own Jedi General because he was going to betray. He was getting them killed on purpose so he could defect to the Separatists. Politics have been in Star Wars. The Clone Wars have politics. We see peace talks that fail in Star Wars, the Clone Wars. We see the politics of neutral factions, of reluctant factions. We see politics of individual people change. It's probably the only difference between the Clone Wars and Last Jedi for politics is that the Last Jedi got a little bit more into the economic side of politics, while the Clone Wars was more focused on the political side of politics. Okay, some people might take offense to that, but I think what the Last Jedi was saying is that unbridled greed is a bad thing. Those people who try to make money off of people fighting for a cause are not good people. The other thing is what they're saying. Still not saying anti-capitalism. They might be. But I think they're definitely saying that, well, the people who make money, world profiteers, are not good people. Simple as that. Now, DJ, I think, was showing the extreme side of that philosophy where, it doesn't matter. But he's a world profiteer when you think about it. He works for resistance until he gets caught and he says, okay, I'm just going to sell some of my services to the First Order now. He is legitimately, an embodiment of that message. Like, okay, live free, don't join his motto. Well, he does live by it, but he doesn't... He lives just like the world profiteers that he steals from. He sells services to one side, the resistance needs a slicer, so fine, I'll do it. Ooh, cut. I'll cut a deal, I'll give them the information you give me so we can sneak in so they can blow up your friends. DJ is not a good character. He doesn't have loyalty to anyone. Some people may admire that, I guess, but it's always been there. We just get to see the economic side, and we get to see it in the movie that gets more exposure. Star Wars has not been ruined by Disney. Star Wars has not been ruined by the fans, either. It's been ruined by the people who are taking opportunity of people's uncertainty about the change over to Disney, and those same people also taking advantage of things like, minor complaints, and maybe even some major complaints, but taking them to the next level. Do I have evidence for this? Honestly, no direct evidence. Mostly inferred evidence based off of reactions people are having to certain things. And clickbait and fake news is so big on the internet these days that somebody's going and how the news basically makes a bigger deal out of everything. Is it no wonder that some people on the internet are taking advantage of that just to increase their own following? I'll leave that for you to answer. I'm really this video really honestly started out, I just want to explain the different generations of Star Wars fans. And it's still that video. I'm just saying how now at this point, well, some of the complaints that we're getting levied may be valid to a certain point, but some of them are like, Star Wars has not been influenced by Disney in the realm of more political messaging against certain groups. In fact, Last Jedi is probably one of the tamer ones. I would say not as tame as The Force Awakens, but it's tamer than Return of the Jedi, it's tamer than the entire prequel trilogy. People complained about the prequel trilogy was that there was too much politics. And there was. Too much overt politics is a bad thing, I think. Hello Greeter did say in his video that he's supportive of creators having creative freedom. I agree with that. Creators should be able to make what they want. It's how we are challenged. I don't know how this video is honestly going to do. You guys may like it. Maybe a good point of a discussion, and I do want to hear from you. Let's begin a discussion on this. What is Star Wars? What makes a person a fan of Star Wars? How does what they grew up with affect them being a Star Wars fan? How should politics fit in Star Wars? That might be harder to answer, but it's something we can talk about in the comments down below, and potentially even in future videos, because whether or not you may be a die-hard original trilogy fan, or you may be a die-hard sequel trilogy fan, but guess what? You're both Star Wars fans. The only difference is, what's your favorite movie? That's really all the difference. Lots of franchises, you have those divisions of what's a good movie, what's a bad movie. There are people who legitimately like Attack of the Clones. People who legitimately think it's better than Phantom Menace. I don't understand that. For me, Attack of the Clones is the worst film. mainly because of, as I've said before, because of the failed execution of the romance between Anakin and Padme. But that doesn't mean that other people don't like it, because other than that, it was Anakin and Padme's romance is made much like is the counterbite of Attack of the Clones. It's the poorly executed arc that's needed for the point of the story, for the plot, not necessarily the point of the story, but it does help move the plot along, and it's more than just a MacGuffin. It's that thing. It's needed in the story. It has to be there, but it's not executed properly. Because creators need to tell a story. They have to tell a story. We can't have lightsaber fights all the time in Star Wars. Because if the next Star Wars, if Episode 9 ends up just being a one big lightsaber battle, I would not like it. That's not entertainment. That's good for maybe a video game. But even a video game, if you're fighting the same enemies over and over again, it can get boring. You're doing the same stuff over and over again. It gets boring. I don't want Star Wars to get boring. I want them to innovate. I want them to try stuff new. That means different political messaging. Actually, I would be perfectly fine if one film has a strong liberal message and the next film has a strong conservative message. Because I want that to happen. Not necessarily, I want to see lots of things going on in Star Wars. Star Wars is a big universe. Sci-fi has always been used for social commentary. Look at Star Trek, which I love as well. It's there too. Star Trek is probably more overt about its messaging than Star Wars, but it's there in both franchises no matter what. You can't get away from politics. You can't get away from creators putting messages into it. Even some of the less political films, Singing in the Rain, it's old musical. Great singing and all that. Saw Carrie Fisher's muzzle as in one of the roles. That movie does not have too much of a political message, but it still has a message. It's not saying you should support this cause or this cause, but it's more that sometimes you just need to have fun. Every now and then just sing a song. Just every now, it's raining, just sing. It's like singing in the rain. The entire point is you have things will go good for you. Things may not always go good for you. There's going to be problems, but keep a happy attitude. It's a very more like, that is more saying, try to have a good outlook on life. Try, be happy. And that DJ's motto was, be free, don't join. Well, Sing in the Rain is, be happy and sing, kind of. Because it's a musical, so of course singing is a big thing. It's a good film. You don't really think about the message too much because you're just enjoying the songs, you're enjoying the acting, you're enjoying the comedy, you're enjoying maybe even how the shots are arranged. That's what you're focusing more on what's being made and created and ingesting it and enjoying it. You're not dissecting it. You're not even really being told an overt message. It's subtle, but it's there. All media has a message. Some are more overt than others. And others tell a good message. And it's going to be there no matter what. Because if there's no message in entertainment, then what's the point of entertainment? Sure, the entertainment and news needs to be different, in my opinion. I think that's something like cable news and the news on the internet is all falling short of. Because they have to entertain to get people in. That's messaging right there. If you watch the news, you're being entertained, believe it or not. I don't know what to say about that as well. But there's other things going on too with entertainment. Because you need things to watch, like... So, let's try another good film. Marvel films. Well, they have a message. I haven't watched any of them, so I honestly can't tell you what they're trying to say, but they have a message about a lot of stuff. Those, like, Captain America Civil War deals with the message of, okay, superheroes are real, should they be held accountable? Good question. Should they be held accountable for accidents they cause? I actually would not want to live in a world with superheroes because I would not want to pay insurance for that. America already has expensive health care for that. Do we really want to add superhero insurance on top of that? I honestly don't know. For me, I'm not too keen on it, but Marvel probably had, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you probably will have superhero insurance, because they're a thing. But it does have messages nevertheless. Some of them are more hypothetical messages that will never get your answer, but they're still providing a message. It may be a bit more entertainment, and they also provide social commentary. Comics have done that, movies have done that all the time, books do that all the time. Some do it differently than others. I think the ones that do it better are essentially the ones that are more likely to take risks. Because they okay, let's not play this one safe. Or sometimes it's like, play this one safe. And that's why The Force Awakens was good. If they had not played The Force Awakens safe, I don't know if it would have been a good film. But they did, so it was good. Like, okay, we're going in, let's keep with what's familiar. We'll do something different, but let's keep familiar themes and make sure we have a few of the old characters, of course. Similar themes, even similar villains. I wish they had made the First Order a little more different than the Empire, but I do like how, especially in the expanded works of books and games, we're seeing that the First Order is more ruthless than the Empire. Maybe even more evil as an organization. Hard to say, but they made stuff similar, yet different in key aspects, so it's a different story. Because it's dealing with the legacy of Vader. And really, that's what the Star Wars saga has been. How Vader became Vader. How Vader was redeemed. Vader's legacy. It's all there, and it's something that's going to be happening. That's the overarching story. And we gotta learn what's going on in the rest of the galaxy as well. Star Wars is a big universe, and if it's going to continue, we can't just stay with the standard good versus evil theme that we've got in the original trilogy. That's simplistic. Granted, Star Wars does need to be more simplistic than Star Trek. Just because it has to be. Star Wars will be more simplistic, but that still doesn't mean it can't delve into the gray areas, which The Last Jedi did. Last Jedi is a good film. It is a good film. Talk to any critic. And you talk to a fan, I say, well, Rotten Tomatoes shows the majority of fans disliked it. I'm not so sure about that. For one simple reason. Non-response bias. I took statistics in my first semester of college, so that was about 6 months ago now, maybe 5 or so. But basically, if nobody responds to a survey, you don't have their opinion. Some people say people will always say, we need to trust Rotten Tomato. Some people say that. There was one video by Geek Gamer where he said that Rotten Tomato is trustworthy. It is, but we got to look at how they're collecting their data. I would say the critics' impression and what they think of The Last Jedi has less non-response bias than the audience. The audience will have more non-response bias because pretty much you only really will speak up if you absolutely loved the movie or if you hated it. And it's actually probably more likely that you'll speak up and complain if you didn't like it. Generally, people who complain are louder than those who are not complaining. Has happened. Really, we always forget about the loyalists in the American Revolution, but they were there. We talk about them, but we don't dwell on them. We focus about the patriots, those who were fighting for the colonies, fighting for independence, because they were louder. No? And Civil War has those people too. But you got people on both sides, of course, who simply the only reason why they were fought was because the state was sending troops in, so they signed up with their friends' war. We don't know what they actually thought about the war. The Civil War itself is complex, so I won't get into it, but some individual soldiers, we don't know their opinions because they never wrote them down. Every war, for anything, if we don't have information on, we don't know what they think. So, Non-response bias, I think, affects Rotten Tomato. How much, I don't know. In fact, the only way I think to know for sure is to go look at the raw data, like what's been put in to Rotten Tomato. How many, and then compare that to how many people actually go see the film. For all I know, Rotten Tomato may actually account for non-response bias, but it's still going to be there. The film series even theorize that when people are trying to defend the franchise they love, may even be more likely then to go like Rotten Tomato and inflate the score because they love their franchise and they love it, legitimately love it, and they see that people are bashing on it. So what are they going to do now? Especially the diehards, they're going to say it was good, and then do their best to make sure the data exists, and they'll present their arguments. I think that's why Solo is coming out in less than 2 weeks, and we're still talking about The Last Jedi. Probably if Solo was in December, we may not be talking about The Last Jedi less than a week before Solo, but we are, because it's polarizing. And maybe it was meant to be polarizing, wanted us to question our beliefs about Star Wars, want us to provide criticism to them even. For all we know, the directors may have thought, how can we get the most response out of fans so we know what they want? For all we know, that could have been how they approached. So, in retrospect, I'm thinking I'll be titling this video rather than the generations of Star Wars fans. Rather, I think I'll be titling this a talk on generations of Star Wars fans and how people are reacting to Star Wars currently. And maybe that's a good title, maybe it's not. I might change it a little bit. So if it's different than what I've said just now, that's why. But as I said, I want a discussion. I want to talk. We need to people have different opinions. Not only do we need to understand each other, but we do need to talk. Polarization is bad. I think as movie fans we can overcome it decently. We just latch on to what we like, and we focus on that, and we can build bridges. Politics is another place we got to talk and eliminate the divisions. We got to start talking. Yeah, here am I, throwing in a political message. Proves my point. But still, whether it's film or politics, nothing can move forward if you don't simply talk. You don't even... So, probably overall for anything, if there's a disagreement, first of all, agree on what you agree with. So, maybe simple enough. Step 1, agree to disagree on some issues. But then, you agree that, okay, this is a good point. Let's talk about The Force Awakens. Oh, no, actually, no, let's talk about The Last Jedi, because that's more recent. Nearly everybody agrees that Luke's confrontation with Kylo Ren was well done, well executed, and was essentially the Luke we knew. Nobody really complained about that to my knowledge. So that's something we can latch on and say, okay, we got this, we all like this one scene, we all enjoyed it. We also all enjoyed the fight of the Praetorian Guards versus Kylo Ren and Rey. We all generally agree those were two good scenes. So we latch on to that and we build off of it. That's how we can come to an understanding. And then we can even agree on stuff that wasn't as good. We can agree that the Canto Bight arc probably could have done with some rewriting and some revisions. I think that would be a good way to include Lando myself. Take out the scene of Maz flying blaster bolts and flying for jetpack. Cool looking in that. Okay, but it's not needed. Bit frivolous. But we know from the Lego Star Wars and stuff that Lando knows Maz. And we just know, and Lego Star Wars has a quasi-canon thing like, maybe, may not be. It's probably not, but some of it may be. So we can at least assume from that and the fact that Han knows both Lando and Maz that Maz and Lando know each other. So let's simply have Lando's visiting Maz, helping her clean up her castle or something. I don't know. We don't even have to be told. We just know that he's visiting her or talking with her. And have him mention Canto Bight rather than Maz. I think that would have been a better introduction. Now, there's a lot more in the Canto Bight that's going on, but, like, I've watched the deleted scenes for The Last Jedi. They needed, and, like, the scenes they cut out from Canto Bight, I'm glad they cut them out. It would have dragged it on even longer. It would make more convoluted. I think there's more they probably could have cut. But, yeah, it happens. There's going to be things we agree and disagree with. Things that we just need, okay, we need a change here, and a change here, and that may fix it. It may not, but it may. I think one thing, E.C. Henry, that YouTube channel I mentioned before, he once did a video that's also, a good thing that was for the conflict between Poe and Holdo, to introduce the idea that there might be a First Order spy aboard. That would, sow the distrust and make Poe's mutiny against her a bit more believable, as the lower ranks start thinking, like, the pilots and all that, like, could Holdo be that spy she mentioned, but she's trying to throw suspicion off of her? That's like, that could have totally changed the dynamic. In fact, there was that one scene in where she says, Godspeed Rebels. Rebels. Like, okay, understand. The message being portrayed by the film is that the Resistance has become the new Rebel Alliance. Okay, but the only other character we know on the Resistance side to call them rebels is Finn, and he's saying it to Phasma too, and Phasma called him scum, and he said no, rebel scum. But he said that more kind of like clarifying that he's with the Resistance and he's rebelling against their authority. Makes a lot of sense for him, since he is the only stormtrooper in the First Order to have defected. But for Holdo to cause the Resistance rebels doesn't make as much sense. And if that line had been added, we might have had, like, been wondering, like, okay, she might be working for the First Order then. And then she's turning the ship. Why is she turning the ship? And then she sacrifices herself. That would, I think, been a lot better. Like, we were still suspenseful. We don't know what's going on with her character. We don't know, is she truly loyal or not? And then we find out she is. That would have been a good character arc in a way. Maybe not for her, but especially for Poe. And the seeds of distrust should have been in there. Again, we can agree that there's some small changes to be made that would have helped the film along a lot. The Force Awakens, I would say, probably has some things too. I would say it as glaring. I forget what order I put them in my last ranking for the films, but I'm probably when I create my ranking after Solo, I'll probably be putting Last Jedi higher than, or I should say lower than the Force Awakens, simply because of what I know now after listening to other opinions. The opinions will change. Things like that will happen all the time. So, anything else I really want to say? Because there's a lot I can say about this. But, this is the extended cut, I've decided. It's going to be, so you probably saw the shortened video already. It should come out earlier today, where I really only talk about the Generations part of the Star Wars fans, but this is much longer. Also, if you're seeing this, I would like to thank you for staying this long into the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, and also do help begin this discussion on Star Wars, and essentially what it means to be a fan of Star Wars. Probably the best way of putting it, and what is Star Wars? Those are probably the best questions to ask, and that we should discuss, and how we can build bridges between those who like and didn't like a Star Wars movie. I have a feeling we're going to have to be working on that for Solo as well. But I don't think maybe as much as with The Last Jedi. But that's all to say. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel and ring the bell to be notified of future videos. About sometime next week, my predictions video for Solo: A Star Wars Story should be coming out. So be sure to check that out when it does. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. May the Force be with you, always.